Hello everyone, my name is Nurain Oladeji. I'm a poet and editor, and I'm here to read the poems I love. The first poem is Failing and Flying by Gilbert. Failing and flying. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end or the marriage fails and people say they knew it was a mistake, that everybody said it would never work, that she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly, like being there by that summer ocean on the other side of the island while love was fading out of her. The stars burning so extravagantly those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed like a visitation, the gentleness in her like antelope standing in the dawn mists. Each afternoon I watched her come back through the hot stony field after swimming. The sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listen to her while we ate lunch. How can they say the marriage failed? Like the people who came back from Provence when it was Provence and said it was pretty, but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. So this is one of my all-time favorite poems, and it's because I believe it's the poem that most represents what Jack Gilbert tried to do with his poetry throughout his career, which is to celebrate experiences, even if they led to failure. So instead of dwelling on the loss of a loved one, a failed business, it's also important to remember that for the moment while it succeeded, it was good, it was real, and it's important to celebrate that joy. Which is why I said everything worth doing is worth doing badly. It's something I try to remind myself every time. Yeah. So the second poem I'll read is Divine Wrath by Adelia Prado. Divine Wrath. When I was wounded, whether by God, the devil, or myself, I don't know yet which, it was seeing the sparrows again and clumps of clover after 3 days that told me I hadn't died. When I was young, all it took were those sparrows, those lush little leaves, for me to sing praises, dedicated operas to the Lord. But a dog who's been beaten is slow to go back to barking and making a fuss over his owner. An animal, not a person like me, who can ask, "Why do you beat me?" Which is why, despite the sparrows and the clover, a subtle shadow still hovers over my spirits. May whoever hurt me forgive me. I think this is a very powerful poem, also quite spiritual. I like the feeling of submissiveness it gives. It's when I read it, it reminds me to accept things that are beyond my control, to not blame like God or destiny or anything for anything that goes bad, but to just submit oneself to some kind of divine power. May whoever hurts me forgive me. That's a very powerful line. That's a very powerful line. So the third poem I'll read is The Art of Disappearing by Naomi Shihab 9. It's a poem I love so much. The Art of Disappearing. When they say, "Don't I know you?" say no. When they invite you to the party, remember what parties are like before answering. Someone telling you in a loud voice they once wrote a poem, greasy sausage balls on a paper plate, then reply. If they say, "We should get together," say why. It's not that you don't love them anymore. You are trying to remember something too important to forget. Trees, the monastery bell at twilight, Tell them you have a new project. It will never be finished. When someone recognizes you in a grocery store, nod briefly and become a cabbage. When someone you haven't seen in 10 years appears at the door, don't start singing him all your new songs. You will never catch up. Walk around feeling like a leaf. Know you could tumble any second. Then decide what to do with your time. Absolutely beautiful poem, especially for someone like me who is highly introverted, highly discomforted by pointless small talk. So and for someone who is also a writer, it's common to meet people and they say, oh, you write poetry? Ha, I remember a poetry I wrote in '03. What do you think of it? It's a poem that speaks to that experience, and for that I'm grateful to Naomi Shihab. Yeah. So I would read another poem, Letter to Someone Living 50 Years From Now, by Matthew Olzmann. Letter to Someone Living 50 Years From Now. Most likely, you think we ate the elephant, the golden toad, the thylacine, and all variations of whale harpooned or hacked into extinction. It must seem like we sought to leave you nothing but benzene, mercury, the stomachs of seagulls, rippled with jet fuel and plastic. You probably doubt that we are capable of joy, but I assure you we were. We still had the night sky back then, and like our ancestors, we admired its illuminated dodos of scorpion outlines and upside-down ladders. Absolutely, there were some forest left. Absolutely. We still had some lakes. I'm saying it wasn't all lead paint and sulfur dioxide. There were bees back then, and they pollinated a euphoria of flowers, so we might contemplate the great mystery and finally ask, hey guys, what's transcendence? And then all the bees were dead. So it's a poem I find a bit terrifying because of how accurate it seems. It's a poem that brings to mind the reality of ecological degradation, and as someone who is a father of a young son, I'm terrified by the probability that everything described in this poem will come true by the time my son is an adult. So it's an important poem that I think more people should read. So my final poem is The God Who Loves You by Carl Dennis. The God who loves you. It must be troubling for the God who loves you to ponder how much happier you'd be today had you been able to glimpse your many futures. It must be painful for him to watch you on Friday evenings, driving home from the office, content with your week, 3 fine houses sold to deserving families, knowing as it does exactly what could have happened. Had you gone to your second choice of college, knowing the roommates you would have been allotted, whose ardent opinion on painting and music would have kindled in you a lifelong passion, a life 30 points above the life you are currently living, on any scale of satisfaction, and every point a thorn in the side of the God who loves you. You don't want that. A large-souled man like you who tries to withhold from his wife the day's disappointments, so she can save her empathy for the children. And would you want this God to compare your wife with the woman you were destined to meet on the other campus? It hurts you to think of him ranking the conversations you would have enjoyed over there higher in insights than the conversation you are used to. And think how this loving God would feel knowing that the man next in line for your wife would have pleased her more than you ever will, even on your best days, when you really try. Can you sleep at night believing a God like this is pacing his cloudy bedroom, harassed by alternatives, you are spared by ignorance? The difference between what is and what could have been will remain alive for him even after you cease existing. After you catch a chill, running out in the snow for the morning paper, losing 11 years that the God who loves you will feel compelled to imagine sin by sin, unless you come to the rescue by imagining him no wiser than you are, no God at all, only a friend. No closer than the actual friend you made at college, the one you haven't written in months. Sit down tonight and write him about the life you can talk about, with a claim to authority, the life you've witnessed, which for all you know is the life you've chosen. Absolutely powerful stuff. I don't even know where to begin to talk about this. The idea of possibilities, it makes me think of, in parallel with the popular poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. The fact that every decision you make means there are several others you did not make. Every choice you make means you're not making a lot of other choices, and the possibilities that could be had you made those choices. It's also a poem that makes me feel a bit content, I say, with, I mean, as an adult, you think about what could have been. What if I had gone to a different university? What if on this particular day when I was 13 or 15, I had not gone to this party and this didn't happen, that led to this, that made me meet this person, that led to this and this. So it's a poem that causes a lot of that, forces you to reflect a lot, and yeah, it's why I love it. It's why I love the poem. So thank you for listening to the poems I love. I hope you continue reading poetry, you continue to be excited by words and language, and I hope to listen to every poem that every other person loves. Thank you for listening to me. I am Nurain Oladeji, and these are the poems I love.